Welcome to Friday night's video in our second master series. This is the fifth video, I do believe, in our second master series, and tonight we're going to talk about getting things set up in the timeline and what the best idea about that is. In my experience, is that I try to set things up in movements, transitions, and breaks. That is fairly self-explanatory, that you've got different movements happening through a production, different transitions, going places, breaks that might be breaks between transitions or movements or whatever, that these three words will help you a lot. Because I learned that if you try to set things up in movements and transitions and breaks, that you've got this production going along. We're using our session setup that we're using for testing. But if I got something going on here and I start putting up flags that this is between the second and third measure, but I've got little flags here all over the place. And they're like, in small increments, in different places that have really broken things up, because the concept here for you to become a master audio engineer, that sometimes important things happen in very small spaces in time. So with that being said, that as you map out the production as movements, transitions, and breaks, later on you can rename it if you want as the verse and the chorus and the bridge or whatever and things like that. You can put those markers there also. You can have like the intro, and the verse, or the break before the intro. But besides those, that I normally name them movements, transitions, and breaks until I get done with the song, because I map out everything that might need to be adjusted separately. You remember in the last master series that I'm very adamant about seeing each different section, transition, movement, or break, as its own mix. So, and this is, if I get down here and I've got this right here, I've got two markers here, and I've got between here and here, that's the first measure. And between there and there, I have that set up as a different break or transition or small movement. Because that way, that when I go to do mixing, that I'm addressing that small area. Does that make sense? Because for some reason, there's a note just hits there, or there's two or three notes, or there's just some little thing that happens. Sometimes you get like a transition or some kind of break, that this break has, is multifaceted. There's three or four things that happen during this break. This break or this transition is only this long inside of a measure. But there's a few different things happening there that I need to take into consideration. And I might need to redo the mix in those little teeny areas. This may sound really micro mixing or micro working on a mix, and it is, but it can really take you to the next level of becoming that virtuoso master audio engineer, because you've got one verse or one measure here, and in between there you've got all these flags set up. There's different sections in between here. You've seen as something is happening there. Something is happening there that I need to make adjustments for. And you can do all kinds of adjustments. You can rework the whole mix between this little teeny section. You can do automation and have, this setup. You got two flags here. This is a minuscule amount of time. But you can rework the whole mix in that small amount of time to do something. Now, I know that sounds funny and that might sound ridiculous, but it's not. Trust me, because you will be going along, and in that small amount of time that you can see what a small amount of time that is, you might have different things happening there. Different instruments, banging it back and forth. I'm not going to get comical sometimes, but I'm telling you that the better you get, you're going to want to do more complicated things. And the better you get, the better people you're going to be working with that are going to incorporate audio engineering, virtuoso audio engineering techniques into their virtuoso compositions and productions. So it's viable. So the concept is really simply that this can just help take your abilities to the next level, especially during the mixing phase of your productions. Does that make sense? And even in the other parts, you've got it mapped out that, for, the guitar part. Sometimes you might not be able to put flags over there for the guitar part. But what you can do is you can go in there in that teeny small section there. You can go ahead and cut it right there at the guitar part, and you can rename that something else to make notes. And then does that make sense? That may sound ridiculous, but it is an option. Does that make sense? And it can help you immensely. It's like I said, especially in the mixing phase, but in all phases of it, where you're doing editing, where you're doing processing, where you're doing all kinds of things, that this micro flagging with movements, transitions, and breaks, and trying to keep it that simple, because, a lot of times I'll name these until they get really micro. It's like, if it's getting in, I got 5 or 6 flags in a really super small amount of time, then I'll name them all like, break 1, break 2, break 3, break 1, break 1.1, break 1.2, break 1.3, break 1.4, or something like that. If I got a lot of stuff that I want to do some really wild stuff happening in a really teeny short period of time. And then I'll name them movement 1, transition 1, break 1, movement 2, transition 2, break 3, break 2, and on and on like that. And then 2.2, 2.3, 2.4, something like that, because it can be immensely helpful for you to map things out. That way that as you move through a production, that you see things that way. And so it doesn't become this huge task because you're going, I'm going to the next transition, break, or movement. And between this amount of time, something's going to be happening there different possibly than over here. And so I'm going to see this as its own mix, or if I'm working on a separate track, that I'm going to see it as something that needs to be addressed separately because I want to do something right there. Does that make sense? And it can be very helpful in helping you get to that next level of becoming that virtuoso master audio engineer, because you're mapping it out throughout the timeline very accurately. And also that as you do that and get used to that, that you won't do this stuff. Oh, delete that. No, that's too much work. I'm going to delete that, and I'm deleting that because it's just, this break. As you get better, you'll be like, no, bro, I'm adding one right there, and I've listened to this really carefully, and I'm adding another one right there, and I might just do something different between right there and right there, where that brass goes, or that, the horn goes beep, boom, I don't know, whatever you got going on, that you are micro working throughout the timeline, and flagged it out well with movements, transitions, and breaks set up with numbers. 1, 2, movement 1, movement 2, movement 2.1, movement 2.2, movement 2.3 for inside of that movement for different things you might have happening. Because you can do all kinds of cool things in really small amounts of times that can really do cool things if you think about it. If you don't think about it, it's never going to happen. But if it's part of your workflow to take into consideration, the better you get at becoming that virtuoso master audio engineer, the more you will see the importance of that. Because you'll be like, well, this is the break that goes from here to here, and it's like most of the time I'd have that mapped out. That's the break going from there to there. As I've gotten better, I've got it like this. I've got it mapped out like this, that the break goes from here. This is break 1, break 1.1, break 1.2, break 1.3, break 1.4, because all of a sudden you're micro working your whole timeline to do some really cool things with automation or processing or sound sculpting, whatever you might be doing, that just takes your stuff to the next level, so that at every moment in time throughout your production is taken into consideration, and you've micro mapped it out to where every moment is important. Every moment throughout the transition is important. And the more of this you do, the more important you see those moments in time that you can do other things. And it's amazing once you start practicing with that mentality of what you can do. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize that. Now that I think about that, when I was just doing the tracks and when I was doing the subgroups and when I was doing the mix itself, I did that kind of a process with what was going on. And my mix is just awesome, dude, because I took every moment in time into consideration of what I could possibly do there, to try to do something or to try to fix something or try to make something blend better together and what else is going on. Between here and here might be this break, but there might be a whole lot of stuff happening between there, and even in a very short period of time, that you can really micro address what's going on there and what you might do or what you might fix or how you might help it, and da 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 da. And I know that sounds funny, but that is part of taking your timeline into the next level so that you are working on a whole nother level of seeing how important every moment in time throughout your entire production is. And that might sound funny, but the more you attune yourself to that being a reality for you and your productions will improve by magnitudes. So I really hope you enjoyed this next video in our second master series, and I certainly hope you get out your notebooks, because I always say make notes about this stuff and start thinking about that concept and where all it can be applied into your production, and how, and in what areas of production. It can be applied to all areas of your production to just get in there and micro work your production so that every moment in time is of utmost importance to come out with that next level in production and making you that virtuoso master audio engineer. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next video.